Hey guys, it's Andrea with Sucs for You in Houston, Texas, and we're back to discuss watering methods. I have a number of different scenarios, pot scenarios and plant scenarios to cover, and hopefully some of them apply to you. If not one, hopefully a lot of them. Just one thing I wanted to make sure is there's a lot more reasons not to water your succulents than to do so, and the basic guidelines of when to water your succulents are after the soil is completely dry around the roots, and even at that point that's still not good enough for me. If your soil is not drying out within 3, 4, 5 days, if you're at a week and you're testing, sticking your finger down and feeling around the roots and your soil is still moist, you need to do some rearranging and add more drainage to your dirt and add more drainage to your pots if possible. If you don't have a hole in your pot, don't even ask me about watering. I am a stickler for drainage, and I'll tell you the very few situations, as if we come across one, that I will let it slide if there's a pot that doesn't have it, and it's usually little teeny tinies and or a very temporary situation. So on that note, I just wanted to show you a few of the implements that I use to water with. I like to have a little squirt bottle because you can direct the stream directly at the roots of your plant, and it does have a little this little model Flow Master. It has a setting for stream and it has a setting for spraying, and as you come in, as you can see, this is my beautiful new Euphorbia Suzannae, and my friend Jen got me this, and I love it so much, and I think this plant was meant to be mine, because I saw it and then the next day she sent me a picture of one, and I was like, please buy it for me, I'll pay you back. So what I'm doing is just taking my water. This is I prefer rainwater. I try to catch rainwater when I can, but when it hasn't been raining for a while and my rain bin gets murky, I'll fill it up with tap water from the hose, so it's just sitting out and just kind of dechlorinating and stuff like that, and use that to also fill up the bird baths and the fountain, and give the newts. We have some firebilly newts, and we like to top off their water with rainwater when possible, and so it's nice to have. I highly suggest having yourself a bin collecting water, or just holding water. If you have a lot of plants and you have a lot of things to water or refill, it's really convenient to have. I just go scoop up a bunch of my bucket or fill this up, and I just have easy water everywhere. So one other thing about the squirt bottle, it's really great for when you're, again, trying to target the little tiny roots. Just give them a little sip. Okay, I'm gonna try and make sure everybody can see. This is one of the propagations of Echeveria Lola. This is the original leaf that it was growing on, and if you remember back in the propagation video, we saw it then. So I'm just gonna give her a little drink, and that's it. It's I don't soak the pots. I'm pretty hands-on with my plants, so here's another little teeny tiny, I'm just showing you how this is this sweet pot from a Flamingo and Flower, Sally out of Florida. She makes the most beautiful little tiny pots. She has an Etsy shop. You should really check her out. Just a tiny dab, just a tiny little sip directly at the roots when you can, and that's it, and just watch your plant from that point on. If you'll get to know it, and it'll say, you know what, I could use another little drink, or that was too much, or whatever. So this is one of the examples of, it doesn't have a drainage hole, it's temporary, it's super tiny, so there's really not going to be any standing water in there. It's so shallow, it's just going to evaporate, and it's basically fine gravel and a tiny bit of dirt. This is one of those little tiny rat tail cacti. He's so cute. And I painted the putt. I'm not a very good artist, but it was still fun to make it polka dotty. So if you have an arrangement that is potted up really tight, like this one, it's a little bit harder to target the roots without getting water all over everything, and you don't really want water sitting on the leaves for long if it can be avoided, especially if the sun is going to be beating down on them, because the little droplets will magnify the heat of the sun and the light, and it will leave burn marks on your plant, and that's just sad. You don't want that to happen. So what I like to do is I'll take a funnel and a water with more of a controlled flow instead of just dumping a pitcher straight in. I've tried that and it defeats the purpose. And then we're going to just find a point that you can get as close to the dirt as possible, like past all the plants, okay? And the funnel right now is touching the dirt. Let's see, let me make sure. I'll get some close-up shots of this too. And then you just want to pour the water against the side of the funnel, and you'll see it just goes straight down to the bottom, bypassing all the leaves of the plant. And if you need to do it on more than one side, that's cool. I'm gonna come over here, and I'll bring it up and just show you just the positioning really quick. So you can see I am finding openings in the dirt. There's not much. I'm gonna have to pop one of these babies out soon because they're running out of space. And I put the funnel touching the dirt, and then I pour the water down the side so it just flows in really slow, and I have a lot of control over it. Otherwise you just flood it and it makes a mess. This is also a good method for when you're trying to keep your the top dressing, whatever pumice you have on top, little pretty rocks in place. It kind of keeps them from just going crazy. I was still on my notes of when not to water. I'm going to come back to that. A lot of people, and I tried it at the beginning and I decided it's not a good idea for me. If you live in a drier climate, one thing you can do is take a little bin like this and fill it with water. And for some of your plants that are very well draining, you can set them in and let them soak up water from the bottom. There's particular species that are happier in that situation, but again, for me, I tried it and I don't like my dirt being that saturated. It just, again, it's about to start sprinkling outside and it's been overcast for a day. It's going to be overcast for another day at least. And soil retention for that, the water retention in the soil for that long is no way, no. Okay, so let me show you really quick on this Lola girl. And while we're talking about this, here's an example of when you should water. And that is if you're about to, say I was going to pull off one of these babies, or I wanted to propagate some leaves, or I was going to take some cuttings from a plant, you want to give it a nice long drink. Make sure it's nice and hydrated before you take cuttings or leaf propagations, before you do any, if you needed to divide some aloe or haworthia, be sure they're nice and hydrated before you do that, because they're going to be, you should look at this again while I'm talking. They're going to be on their own for a while, and so you definitely want to make sure that they have enough water in them to hold them over until they can put out some roots and absorb more. So I know a lot of people have some propagations going, and they're always really concerned about when to water them and how to water them, and just coming through. Until I have a tripod, we're going to be really hands-on, you guys, but getting there. So when I'm watering my propagations, I have my water. I think I need to pump it up a little bit more. I really like the stream method on this, right? So what we're going to do here, see if I can come down a little bit lower. Just literally go along the tray, targeting the roots. You can even just hit the little plastic barrier and it'll slide down into the soil. And these guys, it's kind of up to you. They don't have to stay wet, that's for sure. You definitely want them to be drying out between waterings too. I'm gonna pour this all over the ground. But because they're so tiny and you're trying to keep their roots happy and in place and growing, these are insane, y'all. Hold on, let me show you this real quick. I don't have an ID on this one yet. It's like this crazy crested, really awesome. It's some kind of Echeveria. Maybe it's not a Shaviana. I don't know what it is. Whoopa! Oh, somebody jumped out. You get back in there. Sorry guys, let me back on. So, I really want to go over this because even though I've shown you how to water, it's not, that's the easy part. When not to water, okay? I'm going to go over these. If you still remember the last time you watered a plant, you might want to wait and make sure it's had some time to dry out. Be sure you're checking it, and if it can go a few days between waterings once it's totally dry, you don't have to water it right away. It's okay for a while without your help. If the soil is still moist, of course, you can check it with your finger. You want to check down around the roots. Most succulents have pretty shallow roots, so you don't have to get way down in there. You can also use a little stick, toothpick, popsicle stick, something to that nature, and check it like you're checking a cake to see if it's done. If you pull the stick out and it's got any sign of dirt or moisture on it, walk away, try again another day. I kind of broke one of my rules to show you the little demo here, but if it's humid, yes, and if there's rain in the forecast, yes. If it's going to be overcast for the next couple of days, maybe, yes. Don't water your plants because their soil might not dry out in time, and I didn't soak them, so I'm not really worried about them. And if I have any issues, I have some lights I can put them under. But that brings me, I'll come to this in a second, what happens if they do get overwatered. If you leave them out in the sun, in the rain, or you just accidentally overwater them, not all is lost. There's a very easy solution. Like I mentioned before, if you have plants out on the shelves and you go to water them during the day and it's sunny, that's not good because the sun will scorch your plants. The water is just acts like little magnifying drops all over, and it's really sad to see because sometimes it's hard to avoid if you have outdoor plants or in-ground plants. But again, if you get water on your plants and you are just kind of a mother hen about it like me, you can get a little paper towel and just go in and just let it touch the into it. Even if there's farina, that pretty coating on the plant, this won't harm it. So you can dry them off that. You can use a little Q-tip and just touch it to it slightly, and the water will just soak right up. Okay. If you have just taken new cuttings, of course you want to let them dry before introducing them into any water. Same for propagation. Any open point on a plant, on a succulent, if water gets inside of it, it actually gets into their cells and they just freak out and rot and die. And you'll start noticing when they start turning, some of your propagation leaves may turn transparent. Some of your cuttings will, if they get water in the stems before they're dried up, they'll just freak out and die. Same goes for if you're repotting a plant, and especially some of the more sensitive varieties, especially cactus. You want to try to repot your plant and leave it alone 2-3 days, cactus a week or two, however long you can refrain and restrain yourself from watering them. Because what happens is the same thing goes. If the roots are broken, then the water will go up inside of them. And the whole reason you're really trying to protect and baby those roots when you're changing your pots, when you're fluffing your pots with drainage, when you're making sure that you have ample drainage holes in your pots. The roots of succulents are not like straws, like some other plants. They actually absorb the water and the air around them. So there's little pockets of air down in the dirt. You water it. As it starts to evaporate, the succulents actually the roots are actually breathing it in from the air. And if you live in a humid environment, you need to be aware that some plants, like lithops, actually can take in the moisture from the air around them, and not just from the roots. Some of them, their bodies, or their whole plant. So that gets fun trying to figure out, the water retention in plants. Oh, if you overwater them, some of them will actually burst. So the fix for that, if you've accidentally overwatered, if you've accidentally left them out in the rain, if you've been transferring a bunch of plants and left them in a bucket that doesn't have drainage like I did last week, and it rained and they just sat in the water overnight and they were saturated. So let me grab, I have an example real quick to show you. Let me find a good one. This one should be pretty easy. So the first thing you want to try and do is, if you can, just raise them up off the ground so there's airflow going in and under the pots. That definitely helps. And this one's dry now, and I put it on it's almost like a wire coat stand on a shoe rack. So there's water going. Water. There's air going under the pot and air flowing around it, and that definitely helped it dry out. But if something happens and your soil is still wet for too long, all you have to do is go in, take out the plant, okay, and just put it somewhere for safekeeping. It's just gonna hang out for a day or two. You can still reuse the soil. You just want to pour it out, let it dry out. You can smell it and make sure it doesn't smell like mildew or whatever, and it smells like dirt. And that's it. And so then once this is dry, and once you feel like the roots are dry and it's had a little chance to breathe, because otherwise it's just been suffocating in tightly packed wet dirt. You can't breathe underwater. These guys can't breathe in wet soil, wet compact soil. So be sure you're fluffing everything up. I call it fluff it up, because you're fluffing up your dirt and it just gives a lot more air pockets in there. See, and on that note, it's about to storm. I guess maybe that's a good time to say that it's okay for your plants to get rained on, and some of them totally not. No, I'm not saying all of them, but some of them it's okay. And I suggest you try it sometime, just so you see what happens if I let some plants get rained on, and see how they react to it. Otherwise, catch the rain. Rain is always the best drink for your baby succulents, and it comes in handy. Oh, okay. Anything else that I want to talk about? Last thing was I was going to discuss dormancy in plants, and there's a lot of times throughout the year that your plants don't need water, especially cactus, in the winter and stuff like that. And even when you're trying to slow the growth for some reason, if your plants have exfoliated, if they're etiolated, they're stretching for the sun and you're trying to do some repairs on that, cut back their watering, and they'll slow down on their growth while you try and get it under control. That's a whole nother topic. Succulent repair. Again, I have pages and pages of questions and answers and demos to share with you guys eventually, but I am trying to keep this concise. I'm just making sure I covered everything. I guess one of the other things, a lot of people this time of year, in the Western Hemisphere and we're entering into spring, or we're in spring, entering into summer. It's a growing season for a lot of our plants. Cactus and succulents, that's when you want to feed and water them. And feeding, you can go get some fancy stuff, or you can use your own Miracle Grow or something like that, but you want to dilute it by at least 4 times. So if it says 1 tablespoon or 1 teaspoon per gallon, you're putting a 1/4 teaspoon per gallon. So I hope that makes sense. I think that's it. And I'm getting a little nervous about the lightning. I mean, just kind of scares me, makes me jumpy a little bit.